artist Alexander Benoit once said, "It is as if Peterhof was born out of sea foam, called into being by the command of a mighty maritime ruler." Peterhof is the residence of the sovereign of the seas. The fountains in Peterhof are no afterthought, they are the main thing. They are a symbolic representation of the watery realm, a cloud of spray from the sea that washes the shore at Peterhof. The sea is, of course, the Baltic. Almost 300 years have passed since Russia, through the determined efforts of Peter the Great, finally gained access to that sea. And almost immediately, magnificent works of architecture began to appear on the wild, deserted shore of the Gulf of Finland. Bold, original ideas were put into practice here, the like of which were rarely seen again. Peterhof is located on two terraces descending to the sea. The upper terrace is 15 meters above the lower one. This made it possible to produce a two-level park and to create a reservoir of water on the upper terrace, which, when released, would supply fountains on the lower terrace by the power of gravity alone. When the necessary work had been completed in 1721, the whole court rode out to Ropsha, where the emperor himself opened the sluice to flood the new canal. The water reached Peterhof at 6 the next morning, and from that moment the fountains began to play. The most impressive and brilliantly decorated hydraulic ensemble is the Great Cascade, uniting 64 fountains. Several noted architects, Leblond, Braunstein, Mikhetti and Zemtsov, contributed to its creation. The water from the lesser fountains gathers in an immense basin. Standing on a pedestal in the center of that basin is the magnificent fountain monument known as Samson tearing open the jaws of the lion. It was set up here in 1735 in memory of Russia's decisive victory over Sweden at Poltava. The jet which spurts from the beast's mouth is at 30 meters the highest in Peterhof. It is said that the water used to rise even higher, but Empress Elizabeth didn't like it splashing the whole palace when the wind blew off the sea. The more than 200 sculptures which adorn the Great Cascade form a priceless collection of Russian 18th and early 19th century work. The sea canal, which links the basin with the Gulf of Finland, is flanked by a further 22 fountains. There are many fascinating tales and legends connected with this complex of palaces and parks and the lives of its royal owners. Peterhof is a truly inexhaustible source of pleasure and interest, a unique phenomenon in Russian culture and history. Peter the Great's heirs devoted particular attention to enlarging and adoring Peterhof. The splendor of this imperial residence was a powerful expression of the prestige of the state. In the 18th century, the Great Palace was called the Russian Versailles. Even before they had extended the grand staircase, visitors were struck by the palace's opulence. But the life Peter the Great and his wife Catherine I lived here was fairly simple, even modest, considering their status. The main element of decoration in the one room, still dating from their time, is carved wooden panels. It was Empress Elizabeth, the daughter of Peter and Catherine, who undertook the reconstruction and enlargement of the palace. Elizabeth's reign was marked by brilliantly decorated interiors, elaborate court ceremonial, receptions and festivities on unprecedented scale. Peter's daughter was noted for extravagance on a truly Russian scale. Building palaces became a genuine passion with her. The reconstruction of the palace was entrusted to Bartolomeo Francesco Rastrelli, one of the greatest architects of the age. It was Rastrelli who created the celebrated golden enfilade. Immediately work was finished, the great palace was declared the venue for official celebrations. During particularly grand receptions, tables were laid the whole length of the enfilade. A reception like that would leave memories which lasted a lifetime. Indeed, any invitation to visit the palace was regarded as a tremendous honor. Three 368 paintings by the Italian artist Pietro Rotari cover the walls of the picture room. Because of them, it also came to be known as the Room of Fashions and Graces. One of the main sights of the Great Palace at Peterhof is its crystal chandeliers. Under Catherine, several of the central rooms were redecorated, including the throne room. Its magnificence was intended to reflect the magnificence of her reign. Here we also find the best portrait of the Empress. Catherine's willingness to spend out on the decoration of Peterhof is proved by the story of one of the paintings in the Chesham room. When the artist Jacob Philipp Hackert complained that he had never seen burning ships, she gave orders for a Russian frigate to be blown up for him. The explosion took place off Leghorn in Italy and caused a sensation across Europe. The rooms in the Empress' apartments are also magnificent. Catherine the Great's fondness for construction came close to an obsession. In one of her letters she wrote, "Building is a bewitched business. It consumes money, and the more you build, the more you want to build. It's a disease, like drunkenness, or maybe a kind of habit." The palace, located on the very shore of the Gulf, was founded by Peter the Great, who gave it a French name meaning "my delight." Anyone approaching Mont Plaisir feels a stir of emotion. It is one of those places that has retained the spirit of its time. The palace walls, with bare red brick and whitewashed mortar, resemble Dutch houses of the 17th century. Peter started shipbuilding, rigging and many related crafts in Holland. It seems that this building was intended as a fairly temporary structure. Its walls were thin and the windows with their many small panes unsuited to withstand strong winds straight off the sea. Yet fate, or perhaps the Emperor's affection, has preserved Mont Plaisir down to the present day. Decoration of the main hall in Mont Plaisir has survived unaltered. The room derives a special elegance from the domed ceiling. It is supported by sculptures, allegorical representations of the seasons of the year. Apollo, the god of the sun and the arts, in the center of the ceiling is surrounded by figures from the Italian Comédie dell'arte. When dealing with paperwork in the maritime study, Peter could glance out of the windows to see St. Petersburg, the capital under construction in one direction, and Kronstadt, the fortress guarding the entrance to the Gulf in the other. The tiles in the study depict 13 different types of vessels which existed in the Russian Navy in the 18th century. Ships like these would have sailed up the channel into the new capital under the watchful gaze of the emperor. Peter's monogram on the chair is repeated on a casket produced by the celebrated metalworkers of Tula. Alongside the maritime study is the bedroom where Peter always slept when he was at Peterhof, despite the ever-present damp in Mont Plaisir. We have a special respect for places that were in some way the very first. The Mont Plaisir Palace housed the very first picture gallery in Russia. The 16 windows and glazed doors down one side form a sort of glass wall linking the gallery with the Mont Plaisir garden. When it rained, it was pleasant to stroll here, admiring the paintings. On hot days, the gallery was shady and cool. The first artists in the first picture gallery in Russia were Dutch. The main subjects were views of harbors, ships at anchor, and ships in stormy seas. Many of the works here are by Adam C. Law, a widely educated man, as sea captain, ship designer, painter, and engraver. The Mont Plaisir Palace also contains the famous lacquer study, with panels designed by the artist Hendrik van Bronkhorst and produced by Russian craftsmen. You could stay and look at the panels forever. They contain so many fascinating images from the daily life of the Chinese, which Europeans found so exotic. The gilded carved shelves around the walls hold a valuable collection of Chinese and Japanese porcelain. These vases came into the palace at a time when porcelain from the Orient was literally worth its weight in gold. Even broken fragments were mounted in precious metals and worn as jewelry. The painted ceiling serves as a reminder that we are still in Europe. It was created by the French artist Philippe Pilman, who was responsible for all the ceilings in Montplaisir. Another collection in Montplaisir also comes from the Orient, a display of brown stoneware teapots of different shapes and sizes in the pantry. Their lids and bases bear the marks of Chinese potters. The tiles, which cover the walls from floor to ceiling, as well as the stove in the kitchen again, came from Holland. All the tableware here was expensive. Dishes from Delft, porcelain plates from China, and pewter from England. After enjoying a meal cooked in this kitchen, guests would stroll out into the Montplaisir garden, noted for its trick fountains. Not for a moment, though, was one allowed to forget that Peterhof was situated on the sea and intended to glorify the marine element. Jets of water would suddenly appear from nowhere and soak unsuspecting guests from head to foot, to the great delight of His Imperial Majesty. Peter's daughter, Elizabeth, ordered the construction of a separate wing alongside Montplaisir for large gatherings. The building became known as the Catherine Block because for a long time it was the home of Catherine the Great before she came to the throne. It was from here, on 28th of June 1762, that she set off for St. Petersburg to join in the coup d'etat against her husband, Peter III. The new empress cannot have had especially pleasant memories of Peterhof, because during her husband's brief reign she was a virtual prisoner here. Yet, when she was in the mood to relax, she always felt drawn to the residence on the Gulf of Finland. Here she led a very simple life. She rose at 6 a.m., walked in the park, and took coffee on the terrace of Montplaisir. Catherine even complained that Peterhof encouraged her to laziness. In another letter she wrote, "Here I sleep like a log, unable to find the time or the inclination to write." Many visitors came here for that same reason. Towards the end of Catherine's reign, the Catherine Block became the venue of the annual graduation balls of the Smolny Institute for the daughters of the nobility. The Yellow Hall here is one of the most attractive rooms in the whole complex. It retains the original decoration by the architect Giacomo Quarenghi. Here again, we are in the realm of superlatives. The table in the center of the room is laid for 30 people with the Russian or Guriev service. This is the largest dinner service ever produced at the Imperial Porcelain Factory in St. Petersburg. The main part of the service comprises about 1,000 items and took 8 years to produce. The open-work vases are supported by figures of girls by the talented sculptor Stepan Pimenov. The wine coolers bear reproductions of views of Moscow, St. Petersburg and their environs. The plates were decorated with St. Petersburg scenes and typical representatives of the peoples of Russia. The Yellow Hall also contains an interesting tapestry. Commissioned by Napoleon and produced at the Gobelins factory in Paris, it depicts Peter the Great rescuing fishermen on Lake Ladoga. Louis XVIII presented it to Alexander I, the Tsar who defeated Napoleon. The Catherine block is also noted for its collections. Most significant is the furniture created to the designs of noted architects Carlo Rossi, Andrei Voronichin and Luigi Rusca.